Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Ashton Stewart. I am the Veteran Program Manager at MJHS. And MJHS is a health system. It's been around for a very long time, originated in Brooklyn. And since that time, over 100 years ago, we've expanded into one of the largest health systems in the region. I'm very proud to be part of the MJHS team, working with our staff to better serve veterans and their families. And today's program, the Vet to Vet Cafe, is to talk about some of the trends that we see, share resources, some of the things that we're going to share today in person and both also online. And this is see if I can get that on camera. This is our Vet to Vet, our MJHS Veteran Resource Guide. We have copies in person on the table over here. We do have snacks if anybody wants a snack. Got a brochure on the Long Island Cemetery, the New York State Veterans Home at St. Albans, right here in Queens. We're also going to talk about some other things that are a little harder to talk about, this is the living will, the 5 wishes. This is an official document to prepare for your family and for yourself before it gets too late. Working in the hospice department at MJHS for more than 2 years, I encountered a lot of veterans who were terminal, very difficult time of their lives, and a lot of them hadn't had the opportunity to prepare these things ahead of time. So to just sure. So some of the things that are really important is thinking about your obituary. What do you want people to know about you? What do you want shared about your life? How do you want to be treated if you are no longer able to advocate for yourself? If you become nonverbal, what sort of interventions would you allow in a hospital? These are the things that are important in a living will. These are the things that you want to talk about with your family, with your loved ones, with your primary care doctor. And this is where you want to document it in the 5 wishes. And then you share it with your primary doctor, whether it's at the VA or a private practice. Every one of the doctors that need a different institution needs to have this. So these are some of the things we're going to talk about. Also, as you've seen from our flyer, we want to talk about the PACT Act. We want to talk about appealing a claim. We want to talk about benefits available for you and your family. So we've got a couple of experts here today. I'm very pleased to say we've got Jojo Chen, who is the Veteran Outreach Program Specialist here at the Queens Vet Center. Jojo's done this work for years. She's also a veteran, and I'm so delighted that she's going to be the first speaker today. And we also got the Dean Penasuk. Thank you. And he is a veteran benefits advisor at the 2nd level with the New York State Department of Veteran Services. He is also assisting veterans at the St. Albans Nursing Home, the State Veterans Nursing Home, which is a huge deal because a lot of those veterans get into the nursing home and they're unaware, like many veterans out there. So getting into more of this, we're going to start with Jojo right now to talk a little bit more about benefits, what's out there, how to make these claims, and just empower you with some knowledge. So Jojo, please take it away.
Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Is your mic on?
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
It's not coming through the speakers.
Not coming through mine.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. I hope you guys can hear me well.
Yep,
okay, yep, awesome,
okay,
awesome.
Good.
So my name is Jo Chen. You guys can call me Jojo. I am a veteran of the U.S. Navy, where I served a total of little bit over 20 years, together with both active duty and reserve. I've been to a couple deployments in Iraq and Kuwait. So I'm currently working as a Veterans Outreach Program Specialist at the Queens Vet Center. That's where we are at the event now. So thank you for taking time to attend this event. So today I'm going to focus on talking about support access to support service for the mental health, right? One of the most pressing issues that we as veterans facing nowadays is the mental health. Many veterans are struggles with mental illness, particularly PTSD as a result of their service, right? So, however, unfortunately, we're still focusing and not facing another stigmas that stop people getting requests for help. And there are also so many questions about how to access to free mental health service as veterans. I know most of us are familiar with the VA, right? As serve the veterans, we all entitled to use the VA medical centers for mental health, but not many people are aware of the vet center programs, right? We get multiple times, we have walk-ins, we have phone calls that the people confuse the vet center as animal clinic. You know, they call here, they say, can I bring my dog? Can I bring my cats? And I have to explain to them, no, we're not that kind of service. We are here to, you know, offer readjustment counseling service for veterans, right? For me, I think mental health is important. As all these years I work for the vet center, what I have experienced with many of the veterans is when they not mentally feel well, everything else fall off, right? Most of our homeless veterans is because they have some problem with mental health, right? That's when they fall off financially, when they couldn't manage to go to work, when they couldn't manage to go back to school, and that's when they end up on the street, right? I think facing mental health is important because that can impact overall life qualities. It can also impact you with your physical conditions as well, right? So, but it takes a lot of courage for a lot of us to take in the first step, saying that, tell people or your family or your friends that I need help, right? Because for us as veterans, we kind of look at it as weakness, right? Like to ask for mental health is almost like, no, no, this is not me, right? We don't get used to it, right? In the military, we more asking to be take care of it or take care of your own or just suck it up, right? So I think it's very important for you to access to mental health treatments. So what exactly the missions at the vet center is? We are the outpatient clinic programs as part of the VA, right? But we're not in the medical setting. We located throughout the community. We should able to find a vet center in every borough throughout the United States. So I'm in the Queens. We have, you know, one in Brooklyn. We actually have 2 in Manhattan, and then 2 in Long Island, Bronx. So everywhere you go, you should able to access a vet center. Okay. People asking, what's the difference between you getting mental health service from the VA medical compared to the vet center? I think one of the major things is it's really not applicable to majority of the population here, but especially for those people who still remain active duty or still serve in the reserve, that could make the difference because vet center do not share the same systems with rest of the VA. So, you know, like when you guys getting ready to file for claim, right? VBA, they have access to your treatment record at the hospital, but they're not gonna have access to us, right? We have different systems to remain different level of confidential for mental related treatments. There's also different eligibility criteria. We all entitled to receive mental counseling at the VA medical center, right? I mean, you need to talk to your primary doctor, make sure they made the referral for you to see mental. But for the vet center, you don't need to register for VA health benefit for you to receive service at the vet center, okay? But we do have different eligibility criteria. That means you either have to be combat veterans, which most of us here are, you either have to have expeditionary medal on your DD-214, or if you are still currently in the service as both active duty or reserve member or National Guard, right? Or if you are the victims of military sexual trauma, okay? Or if you, I mean, one unique thing about the vet center is it's also eligible for family members. So when we're talking about family members, we're talking about anybody that you consider as your family. We don't need you to prove that you guys are husband and wife, right? It could be anybody that you think as your family, right? So, and we also offer bereavement service as well, right? We do offer both online or in person, because we have vet center in every borough. So let's say in Queens Vet Center, if we don't have enough counselor, or if maybe you're not connected with that counselors, we can always refer you to another counselor at a different office, and you also have the options to do in persons or online. So this is the mental health service that offered by the vet center outside of the VA hospital. But as well as we also have another free mental service throughout the community, right? So don't limit it yourself. Like, for example, I'm seeking for mental health myself, but I cannot get in my treatment at the vet center because of my job here is conflict of duty. So for example, I can get in my mental health counseling at the NYU Langone. There's crisis hotline that you can call 24/7. They were able to provide you the mental therapy sessions, right? There's also soldier projects. I mean, there's many mental health service in New York that offer for veterans for free, right? It just matters that you willing to say, yes, I need help. You willing to, right, ask for those resources. We do have many resources out there for you guys, right? Give an hours, homecoming for veterans, right? Some of you guys are familiar with those resources like Warner Warrior Project, a military one source, right? So there are many free resources for mental health service outside of VA as well, right? So it's very important if you guys need any of those service, because that can also lead to some the benefit that we're gonna talking about shortly, like how you apply your mental conditions as part of your claim. And before you're doing that, obviously you need to get treatment from your mental health counselors, right? So it's like one thing can lead to the other things, right? So now if you mentally well enough, now you got your claim done, hopefully the claim can help solve some of your financial situations. Once you have your financial situation solved, hopefully, you can have better everything else back together, right? So I'm trying to emphasize is there's always one thing need to the other, and there are so many VA entitlements, benefits out there. You just have to ask for help, right? If you don't ask for help, we don't know what you guys need, right? I'm trying to set up different workshops as frequent as I can to hopefully share different topics, different resources for our veterans populations. Okay, so those is my informations in regarding to the mental health. So if you have veterans or family member who are service member, if you see some signs, right? Sometimes you see the signs, like if that person doesn't not like who they are, or they not like, kind of not the same as before, ask, have the open questions, ask them, right? Ask them directly, are you okay? What can I do for help, right? Are you trying to hurt yourself? Those are all legitimate questions, and then reach out to us. We might not able to 100% helping you guys on everything, but if you connect to me, if I don't have answer for you, but look at it, we have all the resources around. I can always get you to the right person, okay? So that is my topics in regards to the mental health access.
Thank you so much, Jojo. Mental health, it's so precious. And you know, as soldiers, especially the older generation soldiers, we've been trained not to address these things. Mental health is something that it's the last of your worries when you're a soldier. You know, you got to hold the line. You got to watch out for your brothers and sisters. You don't have time to worry about yourself, but that's not the case. And certainly not anymore. There was an article just this month in Warhorse, and diagnosis of mental health disorders among active duty service members increased by nearly 40% over the last 5 years, according to the new Defense Health Agency report. Why? I think because people are now realizing that, yes, I need to advocate for myself. I need to make sure that I'm in check. If my mental health isn't good, how am I going to look out for my brothers and sisters and hold that line? How am I going to adjust to civilian life when I get out of the military? These are really important things. And just to go a little bit deeper, according to the VA's 2023 annual suicide prevention report, this is what bad mental health can possibly lead to, is suicide ideation or worse. There's a growing number of women veterans who are dying by suicide, and the suicide rate for female veterans has nearly doubled in the last 2 decades, between 2001 and 2021. The most recent year, with the data available between 2020 and 2021 alone, the rate increased by 24%, nearly 4 times that of the 6.3 rise in male veterans. A big reason for this is MST, which can happen to men, women, people who identify with the gender they. It can happen to anyone in the military, and it's a scary thing. And one of the algorithms that the VA uses to assess mental health doesn't include MST, and it's written and based for male veterans. So the VA has acknowledged that this is an error, and they're working on fixing it. But this is something that we just need to have awareness about, especially as advocates for veterans and their families. We need to have these conversations. We need to be there for them. We need to be open to listen to their stories, and we need to know where to send them for support. And just to carry one other thing, the AARP bulletin, it's not just veterans and the general population that's struggling with mental health and suicide. There's 300 doctors every year that are dying by suicide. Doctors, these are the people that we need to turn to get the help. And this is really troubling for me. And there's so much pressure in the healthcare industry now that's starting to get more corporate. Rather than focusing on care, they're focusing more on the bottom line of making dollars and shortening visit times. They're changing the system, they're changing the dynamics, and it's really troubling for doctors. And we're also seeing a shortage of doctors who are actually practicing. They're going into administrative roles. We got to work on these things, and we got to find resources out there. If the doctors and the clinicians aren't going to be there, we need to find other alternatives, and they do exist. There are so many wonderful advocates for vets out there. This Queens Vet Center is beautiful. If you haven't been out here and you're near Queens, or you just want to come and check it out, or a vet center in your local area, I encourage you to do that. We're going to turn it over now to Vadim, who's been working for the state, and he's going to talk a little bit more in depth about the claims process. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, Vadim.
Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vadim Panasuk. I'm VSO with the New York State Department of Veteran Services. I supervise all the other VSOs for the state in the New York City region. Today, so my background, I served in the U.S. Army for 5 years with the 3rd Infantry Division as an infantryman with a couple of combat tours. I hold a master's in social work and done a lot of that work in the city in the last decade, primarily with substance abuse and a population experiencing homelessness. Today, I'm working as a VSO. Today, so I wanted to cover a few topics that are advertised for today, which is the PAC Act, appeals, and I wanted to also put out some additional information as well. Before I get into that, I just wanted to let you guys know about New York State Department of Veteran Services. We basically help deliver whether it's New York State veterans benefits or help you apply and succeed in getting your VA compensation. As it pertains, we have offices all across New York City, to include Staten Island and Long Island. Wherever you are, you can reach out to the state. We'll get you in touch with one of our admins, who is then going to schedule you with a local office. And then from there, you will meet with a VSO and work on your claim. They will send over an intake rep agreement. If this is your initial claim, I would also recommend bringing your voided check so we can get your direct deposit started. Other than that, I'll get kind of right into it. So I'm sure you guys, especially if you're in the space, have heard quite a bit about the PAC Act. The main things that I want to iterate on that is that it is a law that impacts a couple of presumptions. So primarily, we're talking about Agent Orange for Vietnam vets, and for Desert Storm and up for airborne hazards and burn pits. So what the PAC Act did was for Vietnam, it expanded locations. So prior to the PAC Act, they did not recognize veterans serving in Thailand on Royal Thai Air Force bases, loading up Agent Orange, all of that stuff. Now they do. They also added Cambodia. Obviously, there's also the Blue Navy Act, which provides that presumption within 12 nautical miles of the coast. Now, what the presumption means is basically that you served in a designated area during that designated time where the VA recognizes you were exposed. You don't need to prove anything beyond you were there. You may not have seen an Agent Orange drum in your life. As long as you can prove boots on the ground, Cambodia, Thailand, within 12 nautical miles, VA is not going to fight you on that exposure. Now, something that does come up is folks that get exposed on ships far out at sea. The VA does what is called a TARA, Toxic Exposure Radiation Activity memorandum, where they will actually look at ship logs, see what's going on, what was aboard during that time, and try to get you that presumption. Just a couple of other things that are not typically covered in the PAC Act, which it's not part of this, but as far as presumptive claims go, there's other types of issues like exposure to, the toxic fumes from various JP5, JP8s, fuels. There is the fire extinguishing foam. Things of that nature are fair game. You can let the VA know you were exposed. They will do a TARA on it to see whether the condition you're claiming is known to be caused by the toxins that you were exposed to. So at the end of the day, while they may concede an exposure, they also may play a game and say, hey, we see you were exposed, but this condition, this cancer, whatever is going on, medically doesn't jive with that presumption, with that exposure. To win those claims, you're going to need a nexus. You're going to need a strong medical opinion that kind of refutes the VA's position. That strategy is called preponderance of evidence standard. So preponderance of evidence is basically where you have 50% of the evidence for you and 50% of the evidence against you. If that's in play, then the VA has to err on your side. So what does that look like? Basically this. Oftentimes, you will have what I like to call negative nexus. You'll have a negative medical opinion on the books that says, hey, I'm Dr. So-and-so. I saw this veteran during a CMP exam dated X, and this is what I think. And they'll say, hey, I see you were exposed. I have nothing to kind of hang my head on, no study, no nothing that tells me that this condition is a result of that exposure. So that's a negative nexus, right? And they will have checked your medical records. They will have confirmed your exposure. They will have done a number of different things. How do we get into preponderance in that issue? You would have to have your own nexus opinion that is equally as strong as the VA's. So your doctor would need to write, hey, I reviewed study from 95 that looks at that carcinogen and discusses this specific condition. I've reviewed the veteran's medical file. I've reviewed his history. As long as his or her history, as long as the VA sees that both of these opinions are equally thorough, they have to give it to you. So they'll then at that point disregard their own doctor and go with whatever your doctor is saying. So the preponderance of evidence standard is a very powerful tool in addressing kind of those very stubborn claims where the VA has put already a negative medical opinion on the books. As far as the PACA goes, the other one that was really impacted by it is the airborne hazards and burn pits. So basically, if you were Desert Storm and up in the Middle East, there's a number of different locations. The VA will concede that exposure, and they've now assigned over a dozen conditions, everything from airway stuff to a bunch of crazy cancers, whether are the head, whether a bunch of other conditions that are tied to that. In that sense, the Gulf War and up veterans are lucky because for Vietnam era vets, it took them a long time to kind of get a lot of this recognized and get a lot of these conditions that now, like in I believe PACA came out 2022, something like that. And, we're talking about 50 years after the fact that they've added new locations. So, imagine being a veteran who loaded up the planes in Thailand with Agent Orange, and they've just 50 years later recognized that exposure. So the PACT Act was a good thing that happened. It can go further, and there are new laws that are coming out that are kind of building off of it. Just recently, they've added a number of conditions, again, for the burn pits. And we'll see what they continue to do with Agent Orange and as well as Camp Lejeune and others. As far as it goes for appeals, so this is a big topic. VA denies claims all the time for many different reasons. The main thing that I want to make sure you don't do is throw your hands up and say, you know what, they don't believe me. I'm going home. I'm not dealing with the VA no more. They deny claims all the time, often on technicalities, often by mistake, and a different other kind of reasons, to include, I'm missing a certain appointment or not completing a certain form correctly. All of these appeals are addressable, and you still need to kind of play it out because this is your compensation and it is for life as long as your conditions remain at where they are. So as far as appeals go, there are primarily 3 lanes that you will be hanging out in. You got your supplemental claim, which is a direct appeal. For a supplemental claim, you must submit additional evidence. Now, that evidence can look a number of different ways to include, hey, VA, you denied me for missing appointment. I'm willing and able to show up. That's new evidence to them that you're willing and able to show. They'll reschedule you a CMP and re-adjudicate the claim. So once also new evidence could be a statement from you, depending on, as long as it's addressing a specific issue that the VA had. Now, I'm going to take a step back and cover real quick what every successful VA claim must have. And you guys might have heard of it. It's called the tripod or 3-legged stool. And we're talking about an in-service event, current diagnosed condition, link between that event and the condition. Now, even those 3 elements, aside from the link, usually it's medical, can look a number of different ways, right? So for your in-service event, you could have fell off a truck, hurt your shoulder, went to the medics, they annotated it, that's your in-service event for a shoulder injury, right? Your in-service event for ending Agent Orange is your deployment, things of that nature. So whatever occurred in service, as long as it's documented, it's fair game. Now, you can still go and say, hey, X and Y happened, and I hurt myself in this and that way. The VA is going to give you a harder time. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to lose this claim forever, but it means you're going to have a steeper hill to climb than other vets who had their stuff documented. So the current diagnosis piece. So the current diagnosis obviously would be best if you're coming into the claim process already with one, right? I'm claiming right shoulder strain, right? And that's already documented, hopefully at the VA, where the VA doesn't have to go outside to look for those notes and things of that nature. But you can also rely on the compensation and pension exam to get diagnosed as well. Let's say you're coming in and you're claiming a mental health condition, and you've never been to a vet center. Well, and vet centers don't even diagnose, right? So you would have needed to go somewhere else to actually get your mental health diagnoses, like, for example, NYU Langone, that was mentioned earlier. Excellent program. They have a military family clinic. They'll give you last I checked, I believe 3 months of intensive care, meaning 12 sessions. They have, I believe, PhD level. Am I wrong on that? I shake your hand. Okay. No, I was just wondering if I'm making a mistake, so I wanted to make sure we're putting out good information. But yeah, they'll give you about 3 months of intensive outpatient mental health care. Most of their counselors are PhD level, so they're very, very good. And no nonsense. They will treat you, and they will come up with a game plan at least to get you stabilized. If you are kind of experiencing a crisis, they'll get you the help that you need. But obviously, if you're in crisis, also reach out to the Veteran Crisis Line and all of the other resources available. So you can rely on the CMP exam to get diagnosed. Now, it's not the best strategy, but you can do it. And oftentimes, you will get that diagnosis. Now, what happens at a CMP exam? So the CMP is looking at 3 things. So they're looking at whether you have the condition you're claiming, they're looking at its severity, and they're going to issue a medical opinion on whether the military caused it. Okay. Usually, if you have records, documentation of that injury, the examiner is going to be like, "Yep, I see that onset," and they're very, very likely to give it to you. Not 100%, but they're more likely to give it to you than if they have nothing, right? So that's the 3-legged stool: in-service event, current diagnosis, and then that opinion about the link between that event and the condition that you have, right? So when we are talking about exposure, we're talking about are there medical studies, et cetera, that shows the doctor that X can cause Y, right? So, because, for example, something that you'll see a lot, especially for Camp Lejeune folks, is there are a lot of claims going in for kidney disease. Unfortunately, kidney disease is not a presumptive on this issue. Kidney cancer is. And the VA will say, hey, if you don't have kidney cancer, we're going to deny you kidney disease. And I've tried to appeal these, and without a strong nexus, without a doctor coming in and saying, hey, the VA, here's a study for you to look at that proves this, the VA is going to give you a hard time. Unfortunately, those studies, at least for the kidney disease, are sparse. Yep.
Anyone have a black 300 Chrysler? We need you to vacate the spot. Sorry.
So I lost my train of thought a little bit. I was still like, is it my car? No, it's not. Mine is red, and it's not a Chrysler. Yes, that's where I was at. So regarding the kidney disease claims, for example, when I was looking at those studies, there actually is a dramatic uptick in cancers, but the levels of folks who are at Lejeune and reporting kidney disease is flat. So they're not seeing an increase over general population. So they're saying, hey, even if you are at Lejeune, your kidney disease rates are the same. Therefore, we don't believe Lejeune causes kidney disease, right? And that's kind of where they hang out. You can still win that if you can convince the VA that is the case with you. So things that are not presumptive, for example, you're going to need maybe submit a study along with the claim, because if it's in the evidentiary record, you can ask the examiner to issue an opinion on that study and what does that do within your case. But they're going to give you a hard time. So that's we spoke about the supplemental claim, right? So you got new evidence, you want to submit it to the VA to address one of the issues that the VA got hung up on. Typically, it'll be one of these 3 things on the 3-legged stool. They'll either say, you don't have an in-service event, we don't see onset in service, therefore we had to deny. You're not diagnosed, right? The CMP examiner could have looked at your knees and said, hey, I don't see what's wrong. Even if there's a lot going on, they can still do that. And the VA is going to have to take their word because that is the medical exam for your claim. Or they'll hem you up on the link. So something that we see often is where for example, in submitting for hearing loss and tinnitus, and this is actually against the law, but I don't know if they don't correctly train those audiologists who are issuing those opinions, but oftentimes they'll insert themselves in the middle. And what I mean by that is, let's say you were artillery, right? And the VA will almost automatically, it's not really automatic, but so for hearing loss, there's 3 tiers of noise exposure, and 3 is the highest, 1 is the lowest, and 2 is the moderate. And even if you're in the highest tier, I've seen where the examiner inserts themselves and says, hey, I see hearing loss for VA purposes. I see we are conceding hazardous noise due to your MOS, but no one said in service you had really great audio, audio testing records at your out processing, therefore denied, right? Now, that is wrong because A, hearing loss is gradual after a noise injury, and 2, there's actually case law on the books that specifically tells the VA in these specific instances, you're not allowed to do that. You don't need to see audio shift in order for you to grant a hearing loss claim or a tinnitus claim. Now, the examiners still do it all the time. You're going to need a VSO to appeal it for you, to make the law argument and say, hey, VA, take a look at these 3 cases from BVA, Board of Veteran Appeals, where these kinds of decisions have been overturned, therefore grant my claim, right? So in this case, it would still be a supplemental claim, and your new evidence is presenting that case law. Now, you have also something called a higher level review, and I'm sure a lot of folks heard about that as well. Oftentimes, if a claim gets denied, I hear, oh, submit a higher level review. Well, a high level review only will work if the VA made a mistake, right? Because the only thing you're asking the VA to do is review the decision. So hand the claim over to a more experienced adjudicator, review the decision, and see if it's correct. Usually as part of a high level review, we will schedule what are called informal conferences, where we will actually get with the rater and explain to them where the mistake occurred. And typically what you're trying to do is what I like to call is force a cue, which is a clear and unmistakable error. So by forcing a cue, what I mean by that is you are letting the VA know exactly where that mistake occurred so they can take that decision back for readjudication, whether it is for a new medical opinion, whether it is like, oh, we adjudicated as a direct, the veteran was claiming it as a secondary to something else. So it will allow the VA to review that decision, to change it potentially. They will, if they find a mistake, they'll first send you a letter saying, hey, we found a clear unmistakable error or a duty to assist error, things like that. And then they will issue you a new decision a little bit later. With high level reviews, you are not allowed to submit anything new into the evidence record. So sometimes what we like doing is we'll submit a 4138, which is like a statement in support of claim, and we'll say, hey, please don't consider this new, just walking you through what we are kind of the reasons why we're submitting this high level review. It's good, but it gives the VA an out, which is you submitted a new piece of paper, we're not even going to look at it. And they do that also very often. So if you get like one of those, I want to keep things PG here, but one of those rating officers, you know who you're dealing with. Yeah, so they'll basically say, hey, you submitted a new piece of paper, we're not going to look at it. And that's where that informal conference really comes in, because if you didn't schedule one, now they threw it, and all they're looking on the inside really is to see whether they understand their rating officer's train of thought, if it follows the law. Now, you could still, at a high level review, point holes in that, but the rating officer might not land there. They might kind of just rubber stamp the previous guy's or gal's decision. The next lane for appeals is the Board of Veteran Appeals. Is basically taking the claim to the judge. I would recommend using this lane once you've exhausted the other lanes, the supplemental and the higher level, if a higher level is appropriate. Primarily because you can still get your decision much faster than at a BVA. BVA, you're going to submit that a hearing request. You're gonna wait for that to get on the docket. It takes a while. It can take over a year to just get seen, sometimes a couple of years. So only really stubborn claims will take to the BVA. And by stubborn, I mean like, hey, for example, veteran was experiencing depression in service, never went to seek mental health. We submitted lay statements from the spouse who was with him at the time, started drinking, wasn't getting promoted, experienced XYZ in service. And we submit that statement. As long as it's a credible statement and the VA doesn't have a reason to believe you're dishonest, they have to take it at its value. They cannot say that, oh, you're the spouse, therefore, of course, you're probably lying. They cannot do that. That is not a valid reason for them to take that statement and throw it in the trash. So if the VA continuously doing that and you're not winning on a supplemental or higher level review, then we need a judge's opinion on it. And oftentimes, not what is called a non-adversarial hearing, meaning VA is not sending a lawyer to counter what we're saying. All we're doing at a Board of Veteran Appeals hearing is, here is the law, here is the evidence, we believe we met the standard, what do you think, Judge? Right? And if everything checks out, they're likely to give it to you. If they get hung up, they might say, hey, I actually want to develop for a new medical opinion, and they'll say, hey, I'll remand, I want more evidence. So those are your three primary appeal lanes, and you are always hanging out within one of the three legs of the stool. So once the VA kicks one out, let's say they denied you due to no service event, and you come back to a VSO and you're like, well, here's more evidence of my shoulder condition. I've been treating it at the VA, et cetera, et cetera. We see that all the time. You're providing a diagnosis, you're providing treatment records. We're not addressing the in-service event. The VA may very well actually not even reopen that claim. They may say, hey, we already know your shoulder's messed up. That's not news to us. Not open because the evidence is not new or material to your case, right? So they may as well, might not even open the book on it. They might not give you a new CMP until you actually address the in-service event, and that's usually via lay statements, et cetera. So I kind of covered a lot. I wonder if there are questions. So I'll take some from the room, and then maybe if there are some in chat as well, we can go from there.
Could we mute, if there's no questions right now, could you mute for just a second? I'm gonna.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vadim. One thing that's really clear is that going alone with these claims and the process is very daunting and very challenging oftentimes. And the appeals process is good to know about, but having an advocate, a VSO from the state level or from your local a local VSO at your American Legion or VFW, there's a lot out there. And so I know that there's some people tuned in today who are not in New York, but please know that every state does have a department or a division of veteran services. They all have American Legions and other dedicated veteran service organizations in your area. So please find out more about it. And I don't want people to think that you have to be covered through a presumptive, through the PACT Act to be eligible. We had a case for a veteran who was exposed to toxins and never saw combat. And we learned very late in the game, he was terminal, that his base was right beside a chemical plant that ended up being a Superfund because it was so toxic, they had to shut it down. So we filed a claim for him because he had prostate cancer, and we filed it like literally days before he died, and they approved it for 100%. And now that benefit can go to his surviving spouse. And you can't do that unless you file the claim while the veteran's alive. And it's so crucial to have this information and to weigh the information on your own experience to determine whether or not you should see this through. Ask questions, speak to somebody about it, just do a little bit more exploration here. I wanted to turn it back to JoJo for a sec, just because there's so much that happens here at the vet center. There was a group meeting this morning. There's so many meeting rooms. It's a wonderful space. Could you just talk a little bit, JoJo, about the program that you have here in the Queens and how it compares to other vet centers, and just but mostly focused on what you offer here at Queens?
So for those who never been to vet center, I will highly recommend, pay them a visit in any vet center that nearby by your location, because it's more community based. It's not a medical setting like the one that you attend your medical treatment at the hospital. So it's more home. I mean, this is new location. The Queens Vet Center is actually, we just moved into this locations not August last year. So for those here in person, you can tell it's just brand new, right? It's brand new office. It's just nice, pretty. But if you visit different vet center, you will find another unique things. Not every vet center is the same. I mean, we serve the same mission, right? We have the same mission, we have the same purpose, but every one of them have their own unique. Our own location is when I first ended with this job, right? When I got the job interview for the vet center positions, when I entered the building, I thought I ended up into someone's living room, so, and then if you're going to Harlem, and not like you going to a little museum, so they had different unit of setting just to make a more homey feeling for the reverends that may be more comfortable to come to the community based compared to going to the hospital setting, right? Also, although I mentioned the vet center is more focused on providing mental health counseling service, so we including like individual sessions, group sessions, family therapies, right? But other than that, every vet center also had their unique wellness programs. Like for example, now I'm hosting at the vet center currently, we have yoga meditation groups going on Friday, right? I have 2 photography groups. The one is online, the other one is in person, and we just finished this cycle, and we're about to plan on getting the new cycle started, right? So throughout the year, every resident had their own activities, right? We do summer barbecues, we do holiday gathering that we just had that right before Christmas. So there's another activities, another workshops, depend on that. Some of the vet center offer music therapies, writing workshops, right? What's it called? Painting art therapies, right? So you really have to check the one that nearby you. But one good thing is there's no restriction of how many you can use, right? You can use as many vet center as you want, pretty much according to your convenience, right? I have so many veterans that live outside of Queens, but they work in Queens. So, obviously it could be another convenience location for them to utilize. And you don't need to register with the VA for that, right? I highly recommend you guys stop by, chat with those local vet centers. Some of the local vet centers, they provide peer-to-peer supports, and my office, it's up to the veterans. They are welcome to come use our waiting room, use our 5-minute room, right? People who come for the vet center counseling service, sometimes they bring their little kids, and we have 5-minute room for them to hang out, watching TV, play little games, stuff like that. We also have some coffee stations that they can just hang around, chat with each other, build a network, right? Build a network, and you never know, sometimes by just talking to all the veterans, you get the support that you need. You get some resource that you never heard about it. I learned a lot of my job experience by talking to my veterans, right? Sometimes they know more than me, and we all learn from each other. So Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah. I mean, I heard that so many veterans online today that is actually outside of New York. So if you wanted to know any vet center that nearby your location, you can also contact me and I can pull up the vet center in your area with the contact information, and you can reach out to see what they offer other than counseling service, right? Again, every vet center have their own little unique, other than we have the similar missions. Mhm.
Thank you so much, JoJo. You could also look up vet centers on the VA website, and it has a search tool. You can put in your zip code and it will locate the vet centers in your proximity. I want to turn and pivot just for a minute to our veterans who may be with us today, or veterans that you're advocating for that have an other than honorable discharge. First and foremost, other than honorable does not mean the same thing as dishonorable. Very different. And other than honorable is more of an administrative type of discharge, whereas dishonorable is punitive. And so that is something that I saw played out on a TV drama not long ago, that they were interchanging other than honorable with dishonorable, and it drove me nuts. So I even posted something on their IMDb page to scold them and to let them know about New York State has something called Restoration of Honor, which addresses veterans with an other than honorable discharge, primarily those who are LGBTQ plus, and primarily those who have a discharge related to their mental health, whether it was military sexual trauma, PTSD, or traumatic brain injury. You can appeal to the state of New York and share your story about what happened that may not have been included in the decision making by the military, and they will weigh your story to your record and grant you an upgrade to honorable, and therefore you can get access to state veteran benefits in New York. There are many states with similar legislation. I think there's close to 10 at this point. The federal government is addressing this as well. Because in 2017, service members for the Veterans VA rated service connected disability if they provide, or they'll be provided without cost services if their discharge was related to their sexual orientation or gender identity, meaning that they can access healthcare and benefits even with this type of discharge status. This is a policy change aimed at addressing past discrimination against LGBTQ plus service members. And it's also covered or any conditions related to sexual assault or harassment experienced during your service. Mental or behavioral health is covered if you served at least 100 days in the military and served in combat, or piloted a drone in a combat theater. And just a statistic, veteran advocate groups today estimate that about 22,000 of these veterans have experienced mental health problems that could be linked to PTSD and TBI and may be eligible for an appeal for that type of discharge. So this legislation or policy change at the VA and the restoration of honor just means that much more to veterans, because considering of the 22 or 200,000 service members discharged every year, most of them get an honorable discharge, but about 51,000 do not. They receive the other than honorable. Between World War II and 1993, when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was implemented, 100,000 soldiers were discharged for sexual orientation. This didn't happen until the end of World War II. There were a lot of people that were openly gay, or it was known that they were gay, and they kept them in. But at the end of the war, suddenly the policy got prioritized again. 14,000 were discharged during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and that cost about $50,000 per service member. So just those 14,000 was about $700 million of investment from the military that just went down the drain. So when you think of it in those perspectives, it sort of changes one's outlook on the whole thing. And not only is a restoration of honor meaningful to get access to benefits, it also is incredibly powerful to overcome the terrible trauma that you experienced. So I'm proud to know about this. I'm proud of New York as a leader in this. And there's some other benefits in New York State that aren't offered by the federal government. Vadim, would you mind just talking a little bit about those? And also please share like how people can reach out to get connected to a VSO at the state level.
Thank you. Just a couple of words also on the Restoration of Honor Act and those bad paper discharges. So just keep in mind that Restoration of Honor Act restore, as far as that goes, that's for New York State to consider you an honorable veteran for benefits purposes. It does not impact your federal eligibility for other things. However, if you have an OTH or anything like that, I would still encourage you to file for VA compensation if you get service connected. So what they're going to do is called a discharge, character of discharge determination. During that, it's an administrative decision, and all they're looking at is to see whether your conduct was willful and persistent. So oftentimes somebody with an OTH could actually be considered honorable for VA purposes. There are instances where they'll say, hey, we'll actually consider you dishonorable for our purposes, but there's a couple of caveats there as well. One is you can still gain healthcare under Chapter 17, meaning the VA will say, hey, we're not going to pay you, but we'll treat you. So that is also possible. So I would still encourage you to file, because once you get service connected, the VA will treat those conditions. All right. As far as New York State benefits go, there's a lot offered by the state. The best kind of place to get it all is to visit New York State VSO. We have fact sheets we can provide you with and other information. There are education benefits. There are tax exemptions. And just a couple of words on that, because I know it's a very popular topic. The tax exemptions that are offered, there are 3 different ones. Even though they're offered by the state, they're on opt-in, opt-out via every individual municipality. So it'll be up to your local tax assessor on what is offered in your area. So for those applications, you need to reach out to the tax assessor and that is the person who's going to actually receive your application. Now, what is the exemption itself? It's not money off of your tax bill. It is percentage of lower evaluation on your property. So you're paying taxes on a property for tax purposes, evaluated at less. So you're saving money that way. So there's also stuff like the Lifetime Liberty Pass, which grants you ability to visit any New York State beach and park for free. There are discounts on hunting licenses and fishing licenses, things of that nature. A lot of this information is on the New York State Department of Veteran Services website. I encourage you guys to go and check it out, or schedule an appointment with one of our VSOs. I'm going to provide a little bit of information about how to get in touch with us. This is going to pertain to City, Long Island, and Staten Island. Outside of that, you will need to call our main line in Albany. I don't have it in front of me, but it is on our website. If we can pull it up. Sure. But if you are also, if you are in the surrounding areas, our admins will refer you to our sister teams that will then reach out and connect with you. We have teams covering Albany and down all the way down to Westchester and every which way in the state. So if we have folks at the regional office, you can call Diana. Her number is 212-807-3162. And then she will be able to schedule you with one of our offices. Same thing. So in Queens, also Long Island area, you can call Kim. Her last name is Yarborough. And her number is 718-526-1000, extension 2217. And we also have 2217. And we also have Miss Ember Stevenson in the Bronx, who can take your call as well. That number is 718-584-9000, extension 6361. I also would like to provide you with a contact number for our Staten Island VSO, and we call them Veteran Benefits Advisors, VBAs. She can do, she's very good working remote. So if you want to handle your case remotely, you're good with sending documents, receiving documents, printing, signing, sending stuff back. Her name is Miss Almonte, Almonte, and her phone number is 929-775-3386. So you could give that number a call. She will get back to you when she can and schedule you for a virtual appointment or in person if you don't mind traveling over there. So as far as New York State benefits go, there's some stuff for education. There are tax exemptions. There are these various other programs, whether it's parks, whether it's through fishing and things like that. If anybody has any questions, I'll be standing by. Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple questions and I want to turn to those. One is in the chat. We're going to have some in the space. Again, everybody that's tuning in today in person and online will get a copy of this veteran resource guide. This is such a good introduction to just knowing the bare bones of what is out there to determine your own personal eligibility and take it from there. I'd encourage you to look at this document as soon as possible. I did post the 888 number for New York State Department of Veteran Services in the chat. There's also a link. You can book an appointment that way right there on the website. And also, I wanted to highlight another state benefit that I have leveraged several times working in the hospice department at MJHS, which is the indigent burial reimbursement, which is for a veteran without family, struggling financially. It's up to $2,000 to pay for them to have a proper burial in a national cemetery, which also includes military honors. So even if this veteran has had hard times, they get a proper military burial that's full of respect and patriotism. Which may mean a lot to that individual to keep them out of Potter's Field. This is a free service. The military honors is something that any veteran can take advantage of. Their spouse and the veteran are eligible for burial in a national cemetery. Not enough veterans are aware of this benefit, but it is something that you can take advantage. You can even get a medallion or marker on your tombstone in a public or private cemetery through the VA. The VA has done a lot to acknowledge that not a high number of veterans are accessing this benefit. So just wanted to put that awareness out there. We are going to turn it over to questions in our space here in person, but we've been getting some Q&A chat questions here. And one of them, I'm going to just pose it to our presenters here to see if either of you can answer it. There's complaint from some veterans about high copays for cancer services and surgeries. And the question is like, how does this affect vets? Is there anything to help with copays when they're getting, I guess, privately insured? Was the scenario I'm envisioning here with this question. But do Vadim or Jojo, do you have any response to that question?
Yep. So VA typically will not pay for outside care unless they send you there themselves. So it's called community care. And typically that would be for service-connected issues. And the only way they will send you themselves is either A, they don't have an appointment within 30 days. B, they don't provide that service, so they have to send you into the community to get it. Or there's not a VA close enough, right within that 40-mile radius, then they will engage in community care. However, let's say a scenario where you go to an emergency room, but you are going there not due to a service-connected issue, the VA is not going to cover it. And most of the time, if you opt to care for a condition privately, while the VA, let's say you're service connected, VA is like, hey, we can treat your back. And you're like, no, I want to go to my doctor. VA is not going to pay for that if they're able to take care of it themselves. I know that doesn't directly address the copay issue, but if you're paying copays for a condition that's not service connected and you're privately treating it, VA is not gonna pay for it. Okay, so the question is, so the question is, if you go to a, VA and the next appointment is 3 months out. So in order to access community care, you need to get a referral from your primary doctor. So you would still need to see your primary care, like not a specialist, but like whoever oversees your general care at that hospital, and then ask for a referral and let them know that the wait times are too long. And you have to take it from there.
Even though if you go into a specific clinic, such as orthopedic or something, you still have to go to your primary care?
It's handled by referrals, absolutely, yeah.
To so to add to that, you have to check the referral document they send you, because referral document actually tell you when they refer you to the private clinic outside the VA, what kind of treatment is going to be covered that you can reimburse by the VA. You know, so when you ask for referral, right, make sure it's all included, because now if you're getting something extra that is not indicated on referral, that could be something that you might have to pay out on your own pocket, especially if it's not service connected, right? And also it depends on when you enroll for the VA healthcare, it also depends on what priority group that you will assign it to, right? Because people who serve the combat compared to non-combat have different priority, and those priority groups determine your privilege as well, right? So yeah, and of course your service connected is important, because if it's not service connected, they might not have to cover. And that's why I have people asking, if I already have 100% service connected, right? And I still have some conditions, can I still file claim? Yes, because you want those conditions to be service connected, because otherwise that could be another reason you might get charged for co-payment.
Judge, I had a situation, personally had a situation last year, and had to do with oral surgery. I had to have oral surgery, and I'm 100% connected.
Yes, if you waited too long for appointment, they can definitely refer you to the community clinic. But remember, you have to have the referral. If you go without referral, then you might not get that reimbursement. Yes. Okay. Like I'm giving myself an example. I just recently got a surgery at the NYU hospital that was referred by my primary doctor at the VA. I just nearly got the bill yesterday, but it's just like Pierre, like you say, it's almost just FYI. Cost for me is zero. I don't have to pay anything, but I look at the bill is over $24,000, right? But the bill is sent to the VA for reimbursement, but they tell me how much the patient will responsible for, and I'm responsible for zero because it's the referral that made directly from the VA for me to get treatment at the NYU hospital. So referral is important, right? You have to have the paperwork, either electronic copy. I mean, they send both electronic and a paper copy through email, and you had to bring those documents to the private, whoever the private doctor that you got referred to. And that is how you can waiver, you know, the bills from your end.
Okay. Thank you, Jojo. Vadim, apologize to our online attendees out there for some of the questions not getting fully heard. Basically, what we're talking about is the Mission Act that came out in 2019-ish, maybe 2018, right thereabouts, to help the VA accommodate some of these issues when there's long wait times or services that aren't provided by that particular medical center, where the veteran can turn to an outside provider based on a referral from the VA. I also want to mention something, Commissioner Holliday reminded me that this is important, especially since we were just talking about other than honorable discharges. For the burial benefit that I mentioned earlier, that does require an honorable discharge for you and your spouse. That is a distinction that we just need to make sure that we mention today. And somebody else had asked about what if you can't get to the VA because you have ambulatory issues or you just can't get there. You can request a telehealth visit, even if it's your first encounter with a VA and they're assigning you a primary care doctor. Working in hospice, I've done this plenty of times. You just have to ask the social worker or whoever's been assigned to that particular veteran, or if it's yourself, just let them know you can't get there. You can't come in person. Please give me a telehealth appointment, and they can do it. Also, something else that isn't widely known is that the VA can provide up to 16 hours of home health 8-hour support for a veteran. 16 hours is a lot to help take some of the edge off for the caregiver and make sure that the veteran's getting the support they need in their homes, because 70% of Americans, and veterans included, want to have their final days in their home. And that means that there's a lot of pressure on a family member or a loved one who is going to be providing the care for that veteran. So make sure that you're aware of this. You can talk to your primary care doctor or your social worker at the VA if the need arises. We did have another question in the chat that I'm going to pose to our group here about the Camp Lejeune Protection Act. This question reads, I believe that ended last August. Is there a movement or a roadway where the federal government or the VA can extend the time frame for veterans to initiate or continue those claims?
I'm not aware whether they're extending that. Yep, I'm not aware that the veterans that they will be extended that deadline. However, nothing stops you from filing a Camp Lejeune presumptive claim. So just something really quickly I want to address as well. I'm sure you guys are seeing a lot of advertisements in terms of lawsuits that are going out, and whether they're Camp Lejeune related, things of that nature. I just want to make sure that there is a caveat everybody is aware of, because perhaps the lawyers might not inform you of it. That let's say you're filing, let's say you've already won a Camp Lejeune claim and you're being compensated, right? And for Camp Lejeune, there's a bunch of crazy, awful cancers, and but let's say you had one, you won your claim, maybe you're in remission, whatever the case is, and now you went and sued the VA via one of these law firms. And what ends up happening, if you win your lawsuit, you will have to pay the compensation back from the VA, and you will have to pay back treatment monies. So the cancer treatments are very expensive. So you might have won 150K. Let's see how much the VA paid you out so far. So just keep that in mind. And if you are engaging with those lawyers, you ask about that in terms of, hey, I'm already service connected for XY as a result of this exposure. How is that going to impact me? If they're worth their money or their time, whatever they're doing there, they should be explaining this to you. So I just want to make sure that that is out there. And also to Ashton's point regarding the burial stuff, even if you have an OTH, do the Restoration of Honor Act, get honorable status in New York State as far as that concerned, and then you can access that benefit.
Something to add to that.
Can I ask a question?
I can add some in regarding to the burial. So we don't have to wait till the moment come. You know, VA national burials is something that we all as veterans, we can pre-register ahead of time, right? So it's a simple form that you fill it out, submit to the VA National Cemetery Departments. You will get a letter response to you by mail with a certificate, right? So pretty much you have your future burial taken care ahead of time. Because what happened is I do get another call here from family members and contacted me, say, hey, you know, my veteran's husband, father, whatever, just passed, and how can I get VA burials service? Normally we ask a couple questions. Is one, do you know if they already enrolled for the burial? Do you know if they already registered for that burial? Because normally when veteran already registered it, they will have some paperwork left behind for the family member. Or if they don't have, my next question for them is, do you have a copy of DD 214 for the veterans? And if family member cannot answer any of those two questions, then it's gonna get complicated, because now it's not like you can't get it, but now for you to register, you need to have a copy of your DD 214. And then for family member who don't even know what DD 214 is, right? Then you can almost imagine that the whole funeral gonna be delayed, it's gonna be postponed, and sometimes it might not even happen to bury the veterans with the National Cemetery. So that is something we can register ahead of time. I highly recommend everybody get it done. We had the workshop talking about that, right? So like Ashton already mentioned, that the spouse also eligible for that. You have choice of you know, with the graveyard as well as cremation. Right, in Queens, we're gonna have more space, cremation space open at the St. Albans VA hospital, but it's still is a limited. But when you fill out the registration form, it tells you what's your wish, you know, like where you wish to bury, like what if you still have options like where you want to bury, how you want to bury, is a cremation or graveyard. So the VA burial benefit cover all those except casket. But I think Ashton mentioned earlier that you guys, the family can also get up to almost what $2,000 reimbursement for the funeral expenses, if I'm correct on that amount. Right.
It varies whether it's a service-connected death, whether it's,
yes,
it depends.
But don't quote me on the price. That price could be, you know, it could be subject to change, and it might be a little bit different depending on individuals. But pre-register them, okay? Get it done.
Okay, Jojo, you mentioned cremation, and maybe you can kind of clarify this. In St. Albans, not the St. Albans hospital facility, not the St. Albans grounds. Back of the New York State Naval, back of the New York State Hospital, outside of the hospital grounds, The St. Albans Scholarbarium just opened, or it's about to open. That is basically a site where if you are cremated, and if you wish to have your ashes presented and put into a little slot
Yes.
on those grounds, you and your family can visit that site. It's not a burial where you can have funerals there, but you can go and visit that site to see your remains, or to see the cremation of your remains, okay, from now until whatever. And it's a little confusing. It is part of the New York State veterans burial, aside from Long Island. Instead of people going out to Long Island to be buried, the cremation process is becoming, I wouldn't say more popular, but because of distance, because of the age of the veterans and their family members, now you can be, if they decide cremation, you can be cremated and your remains will be held at a local place, okay, in St. Albans, New York.
Just to, oops, sorry. Just to pick up where Jojo left off, what she was talking about is called the pre-need assessment. Yep, and burial reimbursement from the VA happens after the fact, not before the fact.
Yes.
So you will need to submit a paid in full itemized burial receipt in order to get reimbursed. And there's an additional kicker that they have for transportation. But it is going to matter whether it was a service-connected passing or not. I believe it's like around $700 that they'll pay. If it's service-connected, up to $2,000. But that is the ceiling. Funerals can cost 10, 12, 15 grand. It's not nothing, but it's not that great.
Yes, that's the burial, service-connected burial benefit is complex, and if it is a service-connected death, by all means the VA will compensate up to $2,000, which is very similar to the New York State indigent burial reimbursement, which causes a lot of confusion for the VSOs I work with when we're trying to leverage that benefit. And that one is a reimbursement as well, but it comes from usually a VSO will front the money to the funeral home, and then they will get reimbursed by the state. One thing I also want to highlight before we wrap up, we've only got a couple minutes left here. Medical nexus letters are awesomely helpful to get a successful claim, because the VA adjudicators are not clinicians. If they get a letter from a clinician saying that X condition is at least as likely as not related to the military service, whether it's a presumptive condition or not, if there is some possibility that's 50% possibility or more or less, it's not going to put the provider in any sort of liable position. They will not come after the medical provider for putting these letters together. It just has to be on letterhead, has to be short, saying that this condition is at least as likely as not related to their service connection. I've been treating them for X number of years, and put on letterhead and sign it. Call me if you need any other questions. We've got several medical nexus letters for our patients at MJHS. And I'm so proud that we've been able to do that, because they'd never done it before. You can get this from your primary care doctor, whether it's at the VA or outside the VA. There are materials out there, there's resources. The state even has a little FAQ document about this. There was a question about getting a DD-214. That is the golden ticket to everything, everything veteran related. And if you don't have a copy of your DD-214, please get one as soon as you can. You can get it from the National Personnel Record Center. I will send up a follow-up email with a link to that. If it's a medical emergency, put a letter in there to make that point, and they can get you that document within days. If it's for a burial, they'll get that document for you within days. Because it's important that they get it to you so you can proceed with plans for your loved one. I thank you all for joining us today. We're going to mingle here in person, because one of the things that's important is just talking about our situation, talking about our future, talking about what questions we have to plan for that future. But I thank you all. I thank our guests today, Vadim and Jojo. Awesome. Thank you so much for hosting us today, Jojo. Your space is remarkable. We're going to keep these things going every quarter. So please stay in touch. If there's questions that you had that were not addressed, please reach out to me. You will receive a link to this recording along with resources. But a happy new year to you all. We're fresh into the new year here, 2025 on the 14th of January. I wish you all a prosperous, happy, healthy new year. I'm going to just put a call out there for a final question from the space or from our, we got a couple Q&A here. Okay, here's one from Commissioner Holliday. The VA cemetery is a separate facility and is a national cemetery, very beautiful. It's in a federal site. I believe it is administered by the VA Cemetery Division. Note that New York State handles the $2,000, yes, for the indigent burial reimbursement. That's correct. We just addressed that. And the state of New York also has a very new veteran cemetery up in Romulus in the Finger Lakes region that also will bury a National Guardsman. The VA will not do that. So New York State's veteran cemetery is very unique in that regard. It's hard to get up there from New York City, but it's good to know that this exists. Thank you all so much. I see some nice feedback here. Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Ranjay. I think we're going to wrap up. Any questions? Final call. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll talk soon. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.